Hi, Miss Andrea here, and I wanted to talk to you about why you should homeschool. When right before we started homeschooling, I decided to homeschool in December. I'm a very intentional person, so I spent the rest of that school year studying homeschooling. I read over 50 books, in homeschooling, and I talked to a lot of people, and I was invited to homeschool meetings, and I went. At one of these meetings in rural Georgia, I live in semi rural Georgia, um, a woman got up and said, unless God has told you to homeschool, you have no business homeschooling. And maybe I'm a little self conscious, but I felt like she was looking directly at me. Um, I was also the only black person in the room, so maybe that's why she was looking at me. But it kind of made me mad. Um, it did make me not want to homeschool. It made me not want to be involved in this group. And don't get me wrong, I am not anti God, I am not anti Christian. I am Christian. At the time, my husband and I were involved in a church plant, so church leadership. However, for someone to say that unless God came down from heaven and tapped you on your head and told you to homeschool, that you had no business homeschooling, um, I feel like she was out of line. Because what does it look like for God to tell you you should homeschool? And what if someone doesn't believe in God? Um, that's completely their business. Who are we to tell them um, that they can't homeschool? And that little bee has stuck in my bonnet for 15 years. Yeah. Um, so basically, I homeschooled because it was apparent to me that my children were being lost. When I say being lost, they were losing a part of them that they had previously had. They were losing their light, they were losing their levity, they were losing their joy. To have a third grade boy who is clinically depressed, clearly, there's an issue. Okay? To have a little girl who was always happy before and now she can't even sleep and is having other kind of physical issues that never existed before, there's an issue. And gosh, I think the final straw was I was at a meeting with a teacher, and it was late fall, and she had called me in. And I'm sitting at a little tiny desk. I'm a big woman. I'm sitting at a little tiny desk, and the teacher says to me, "Well, Jordan can't come back for second grade if she's not on Ritalin." And I'm like, "We're not even to Christmas of first grade, and you just told me that she can't come back to the school for second grade unless she's on Ritalin." And I say, "Well, that's not going to happen." And she goes, "Well, I don't know what your problem is. My son's on Ritalin." And I'm like, "That is your problem, not mine. This child is very active, but she is not attention deficit, and she does not need Ritalin." And so she writes a number on the paper and pushes it toward me and says, "Well, she needs to see this doctor just to test, just to make sure, because I've seen a lot of children and I'm pretty sure this child has ADHD and she needs to be on Ritalin. She can't function at school." Now, her weekly reports were consisted of A's on her tests and a note in the behavior section every week that said, bless her heart. I didn't know what bless her heart meant. I would have blessed that teacher's heart. But it said, bless her heart. She can't keep her shoes on. Bless her heart. She's too wiggly. Bless her heart. She sat on her knees with her butt in the air. Just little minor behavior distractions, certainly distractions, but not a Ritalin issue. Not if she's scoring good on a test. So she pushed the paper to me, and I pushed it back, and she pushed it to me, and I pushed it back, and she goes, well, she can't come back for second grade if she's not on Ritalin. This is a public school. You don't get to say that. She could come back, whatever. So I said, okay. And she said, oh, good. And she pushes it to me one more time. And I pushed it back. And she said, I don't understand. You said, okay. I said, okay, she's not coming back. And that was the moment my head clicked, and said, homeschool your child. So, as the rest of that school year progressed and little things started to really get in my bonnet, and I actually blogged that year pretty extensively, but little things started to get in my bonnet about, just little injustices that my child was receiving. And I started to see that my son was also being mistreated. Only black boy in his class. There might have been a black girl, I'm not sure. But his first name was the same name as the school. So they would smack him in the head and say the name of the school, blah, 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 elementary, And that was a daily thing. And the teacher would ignore it. But if he said something, oh, that's going to go on your permanent record. It took years till my son realized that there wasn't a permanent record that was going to follow him to college because he yelled at the kid for smacking him. Things like that. And then there was the issue with my son being academically gifted. In New Orleans, my son was academically gifted. In New York, my son was academically gifted. We moved to Georgia, and the comment was, what makes you think your son is so special? All right, cool. Not a problem. So, I didn't tell his teacher till closer to the end of the year that I was going to homeschool the kids. And she looked at me and said, what makes you think you can homeschool an academically gifted child? So now he's academically gifted. He wasn't academically gifted when I told you he was bored and needed to be put in some kind of enrichment program. No, at least the previous school said when he gets to a certain grade, he will be tested into the gifted program. But here it was like, there's no way this child is gifted. Now, this child's test grades looked like 100, 100, 100, 30, 100, 100. So that was the reason for them to say that he wasn't gifted, because every now and then he would colossally, with shining stars, fail a test. The child had migraines. And on those migraine days, he would underperform. So anyway, that's why we homeschooled, because our children needed to be brought back to a place of joy and happiness in their lives, so that I wouldn't lose my children emotionally before they ever hit middle school. We kept homeschooling because we could see that my children were academically advanced, and keeping them in a homeschool environment allowed them to soar, And so, why do you homeschool? Tell me about it in the comments. For me, homeschooling, as a Black homeschooler, it's about academic excellence and freedom of their heart. Not always wondering if someone likes them. Oh, I like you, I'm your mom. Not worrying about what random thing they're going to get accused of that day. For me, as a Black homeschooler, it was about academic excellence and freedom to be happy and to be kids. So, until next time.